Shalom, everyone, and welcome back to our twice weekly videos. It's good to have you all back with us. I want to send a special shout out to my friends Rob and Mindy Benchetrit in Toronto, who we enjoyed a beautiful summer vacation with last summer, and I was very pleased to hear that they're watching as well. Well, the entire Jewish world has finished the tractate of Shabbos, the Gemora Shabbos, in the Daf Yomi schedule today. And I participate in that as well. And I'd like to share with you some words that I shared with my evening minyan this evening before I came home tonight, regarding that the very end of Gemara Shabbos, after a months-long study of the complex laws dealing with Shabbos, the 39 biblical commandments and the rabbinical commandments and all of the various situations that could come up when you observe Shabbos, if you're allowed to break a vow on Shabbos and all kinds of things, at odd circumstances, you would find yourself in very complicated, detailed situations regarding Shabbos. How does the whole Talmud finish? How does the whole Masechta finish? With a very odd story. We know that we're not allowed to measure on Shabbos, except if it's a mitzvah. You're allowed to measure, but usually we don't measure. We can't take our weight or our height or measure things. So the story took place. There was a great rabbi named Ula who happened to go to the house of the leader of the Jewish people, the Reish Galusa, the exilarch, the one who was the head of the Jewish people in exile. And he saw Rabbi Bar Rav Huna, who was the Reish Galusa. He was the head of the Jewish people. And Rabbi Bar Huna was sitting in a bathtub on Shabbos. He happened to see that he was sitting there. Now, in those days, bathtubs and bathrooms were very open. So you could just walk into, there's a story about Aristotle, about how a student of Aristotle walked into his room and saw him there as well. Anyhow, what was Rabbi Bar Rav Huna doing in the bathtub? He was washing himself. He was bathing. And he was measuring the bathtub. He was measuring the amount of water in the bathtub. Ula said to him, well, wait a minute. When did the rabbi say that you're allowed to measure on Shabbos? You're not allowed. What are you measuring for? And we know that you are allowed to measure for a mitzvah. So what would be the mitzvah here? You're in a bathtub. You're not even in a mikvah where you're trying to measure the amount of water to make a kosher mikvah. It's a bathtub after all. And why are you doing that? Medida, the mitzvah. You're only allowed to measure for a mitzvah. The lav mitzvah, and this is no mitzvah. You're bathing, you're taking a bath. It's not for the purpose of any mitzvah. Mi Amar, did they say then that it's allowed? Are you allowed to do that? Of course not. So what did Rabbi Bar Rav Huna answer him? Amar le, he said to him, Misasek ba'alma, I'm just occupying myself. I'm just busying myself. I'm not particularly doing anything special. I've got nothing to do. I'm sitting here in the bathtub, and I'm just measuring for no reason at all, just for the sake of measuring. Like sometimes we do things for no reason. We're just sitting around. We're doing things. So that's how the whole Masechta ends. Odd. The great tractate of Shabbos, all the volumes and everything. Why does it talk about, how does it end with a rabbi in a bathtub? Why is it going on? Well, today happens to be Chav Av, the 20th of Av, which is the yortzeit of the Rebbe's father, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, who was the chief rabbi of the city of Dnipropetrovsk in the Ukraine, one of the great cities of Europe before the war, and during the communist era, when there was a tremendous amount of persecution. He died, in fact, in exile. He was exiled away to a far-off city called Alma-Ata in Siberia, where he died in exile. His wife survived him and eventually came to New York, was reunited with her son, the Rebbe. The man had a very difficult life, but he had a tremendously fulfilled life in the sense that he studied Torah day and night, even when he was in exile, even when it was difficult to procure ink. His wife, Rabbi Simchana, would go out to the fields and get herbs and make ink herself so that he could write. He didn't have paper very often, so he wrote on the sides of the pages of the few books that he had. and his writings survived him. And eventually we had them printed in Chabad. The Rebbe printed them, and the Rebbe would very often refer to the words of Torah of his father. It's quite clear that Reb Levi Yitzchak, or Reb Leivik as they called him, was a Talmid Chacham, a scholar of tremendous renown. And his whole life, from morning till night, 7 days a week, was occupied with the study of Torah. But there are some times that even the greatest scholars can't study Torah, like when you're in the bathtub. You're not supposed to even think words of Torah when you're in the bathtub. You're undressed, you're bathing. It's not appropriate to do that, like when you're in a bathroom. So here we see that this great rabbi, why was he measuring? Why was he measuring? Probably to keep his mind away from studying Torah. So even though he was in a bathtub, he was having a very difficult time in keeping his mind away from Torah. In this case, he shouldn't be studying Torah. In this case, he shouldn't be thinking of Torah. But for him, it was torturous to do that. So he had to occupy himself in his mind in such a way so that he was able to not study or think of words of Torah. And I'm sure this is what probably Reb Levi Yitzchak also went through during his life as well. And this is something that we should all think about ourselves as well. Torah is a constant occupation for all of us, or it should be a constant occupation. There are so many beautiful things to study in Torah and so many wonderful things to do. But it's important to make a schedule for yourself, to start a schedule, a regular schedule, and with that schedule, stick to it. And therefore, Torah will always be part of who we are. As it says, Torasa U'Manaso of the great Tana, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, his Torah was his livelihood. That was his occupation. That every moment of his life, he was occupied himself with Torah. The rabbis asked, what is more important, study or action? And the answer, study, because study leads to action. Even though ultimately actions are the most important thing, but how can you act? How can you do mitzvahs properly without knowing how to do them? So therefore, study is really the beginning of where it all starts. And I would urge everyone to take advantage of that. There's so many wonderful opportunities, even now with the coronavirus and with social distancing. There are opportunities for us to study online. There are many sites available that offer a tremendous amount of opportunities for all of us to learn Torah, and we should take advantage of them. Certainly, Chabad.org is one of them that we highly recommend. And, of course, these videos also can help as well. So I want to wish you all a good week. I hope that it should be a fulfilling week for you. B'gashmius u'beruchnius, both materially and spiritually. And may we all continue to meet on happy occasions. And God willing, we'll see you again on Friday with a new video. Shalom, and everyone, please keep in touch and let me know what you think about these videos as well. Some of you are sending comments, and I appreciate hearing from you. It seems that all of them are positive. So let me know what things you're interested in, and I'd be happy to address them. Shalom, and have a good week.